Every day, millions of people light up without thinking twice. But the real question is, when did humans first start doing this on purpose? And the answer is much older and stranger than you might expect. Because smoking is often seen as a modern habit, something tied to stress, addiction, or everyday life. But archaeological evidence suggests its story may stretch far deeper into human history than we once believed. Across ancient fire pits and buried campsites, researchers have found quiet clues. Small traces that suggest humans may have been interacting with smoke thousands of years before recorded history. But to understand this, we have to start from the beginning. Not with cigarettes, not with pipes, but with fire. Long before tobacco ever existed, humans were already living around smoke every single day. Researchers believe early humans mastered fire at least 400,000 years ago, maybe even earlier. Think about that. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans gathered around flames to cook food, stay warm, and survive the night. And in every one of those moments, smoke was in the air. Not because they chose it, but because it was part of survival. Anthropologists believe early humans likely experienced constant exposure to smoke inside caves and shelters. Breathing it wasn't optional, it was normal life. But this was not smoking. Nobody was doing it for pleasure. Nobody was chasing a feeling. It was just survival. Then something changed. At some point in human history, someone made a different choice. A choice that turned smoke from something accidental into something intentional. And the earliest clues take us to a surprising place. Around 12,300 years ago, at the end of the Ice Age, the world was changing fast. The ice was melting, rivers were shifting, animals were moving, and human groups were adapting to a new environment. In what is now the Utah Desert in the United States, archaeologists discovered an ancient campsite called the Wishbone Site. Back then, this dry desert was actually a wet, living marshland full of birds and wildlife. Inside an old fire pit, surrounded by animal bones and food waste, researchers found something unexpected. 4 tiny burned seeds, tobacco seeds. They came from a wild plant called Nicotiana attenuata, or desert tobacco, and they were about 12,300 years old. This is currently the oldest known direct evidence of humans interacting with tobacco anywhere on Earth. But here's the important part. These seeds do not prove smoking. They only prove contact. Researchers believe these people may have chewed the plant, used it for its stimulating effects, or simply stored it as part of daily life. It's also possible the seeds fell into the fire by accident. No pipes were found, no smoking tools were discovered, just a quiet clue buried in ancient ash. And that uncertainty is important because it shows how careful science has to be. Some researchers even suggest something more fascinating, that humans may have first discovered smoke's effects completely by accident. Imagine plants being thrown into fire inside enclosed shelters. The smoke fills the space. People breathe it in and feel something different. Calmer, dazed, changed. But if that happened, we can't prove it. It's only a possibility. Now we move forward again. Around 4,500 years ago, something much clearer began to appear in the archaeological record. Stone pipes, real tools designed for one purpose: smoking. These pipes have been found in parts of North America, especially the Pacific Northwest. And when scientists tested the inside of them using chemical analysis, they found something undeniable: nicotine residue. That means tobacco was burned inside these pipes and inhaled. This is some of the strongest evidence we have of intentional smoking in ancient history. A human being picked up a pipe, lit tobacco, and deliberately inhaled the smoke. But their relationship with smoking was very different from today. For many indigenous cultures in the Americas, tobacco was not casual, it was sacred. It was used in ceremonies, healing practices, spiritual rituals, and important community moments. It was treated with respect, not habit. And wild tobacco at the time was much stronger than what most people smoke today. It could produce powerful effects when used in large amounts. So this wasn't something done constantly or casually. It had meaning. Everything changed after the late 1400s and 1500s when Europeans arrived in the Americas. Tobacco traveled across the ocean. And slowly, what was once sacred became global. What was once a ritual became routine. And eventually, what was once rare became everyday. But tobacco wasn't the only plant humans ever inhaled. More than 2,000 years ago, the Greek historian described something unusual about nomadic warriors called the Scythians in Central Asia. He wrote that they would place special plants on hot stones inside enclosed tents and breathe in the rising smoke together. And according to his account, they would react with intense excitement. For a long time, people questioned this story, but modern archaeology later found ancient plant residue in that region dating back thousands of years, which suggests Herodotus may have been describing something real. Across ancient cultures, smoke was often used in rituals, burning herbs for healing, burning incense for purification, burning plants for spiritual connection. But intentional inhalation as a personal act, directly breathing smoke through a tool, appears most clearly in the archaeological record of the Americas. When we put everything together, the timeline becomes clear. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans lived around fire and smoke as part of survival. 12,000 years ago, we saw the first signs of human interaction with tobacco plants. 4,000 years ago, we found ancient pipes and chemical proof of inhalation. And after 1500 AD, tobacco spread across the world and became the daily practice we know today. And that's what makes this story so interesting. Smoking is not new, but the way we do it today, the casualness, the routine, the habit, that part is very new. Because somewhere along the way, something ancient and meaningful became something ordinary. And maybe that shift tells us something deeper about humans. We take things that once had meaning and slowly turn them into everyday habits, without even noticing.